What's up? This is Rip City Real Talk. Anthony Blaylock and Craig Moshka here to host you guys. Talk about the last week worth of games, and we are officially at the quarter season mark, 18 games in. So we're going to discuss all that, where the team's at after the quarter, what we think the expectations are going forward, and just kind of getting down to it. I also want to let everybody know we are on YouTube. If you could subscribe, that would be awesome. Twitter and Facebook. Follow us, like us, share us, do everything you can to help us out. We appreciate the support again from everybody that has done so far. With that, my man, we're gonna jump right into OKC and we do our shouts. And you want to do shouts and pouts first?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's get to the shouts and pouts. So, if you're new to the podcast or you haven't watched a bunch of episodes, shouts and pouts are just a really quick hit. What do you like? What do you not like right now? So, Anth and I go through pretty quick. What do you got right now, man?
All right, my first shout is going to be the usage that Cantor is getting, and I will touch base a little more on that. But I'm sorry, having a guy that can have the kind of footwork and post game that he brings to the table, missing Nurk especially. I love how I'm seeing him get the ball down low a little bit more, and they're starting the game off by going to him. It seems like they did with Nurk for a while. So that's been awesome for me, and we'll talk a bit more about that here in a moment. But great to see.
Yeah, I think that Cantor's been really as good as you can expect from a Blazers fan perspective. I mean, he's playing better defense than people think, and he's doing everything we ask of him. So he's been awesome. My first shout is Anthony Simons scoring, but scoring from everywhere, right? The thing with Ant is we don't know what his ceiling is offensively. We want it to be a combo guard who can drop 25 any given night, but he hasn't shown us that his first 2 years. Now he's really young and he doesn't have a lot of experience against A-level competition. And so this is our first chance of giving him full minutes or at least 25 plus minutes. So I think Ant stepped up, man. His confidence looks good. And you and I have been very critical of him in the past. We were not a big fan of his draft. So kudos to Ant.
Yeah, for sure. It's good to see. It's good to see him getting minutes. We've needed him to with the injuries, and we'll discuss more of that as well. But yeah, for sure, he's playing great. And then my first pout, my first pout has got to be Carmelo's shooting.
Mm.
And I've been, out of the two of us, a pretty big advocate of giving him the ball in the second unit. It's getting trickier for me to want to see him get the ball in his hands. His percentages are down. His shooting in clutch situations is down.
Mhm.
It seems like we go in the lulls with him getting the ball, and there's misses, and teams are building upon that. And I'm not liking it. I'm not like seeing it as much as I was thrilled to see it at the beginning of the year. I'm starting to lose my faith there. So down on that. That's my pout.
Okay. I think that's a fair criticism. I do think that we're going to see less Melo minutes as Covington, Derek Jones. I mean, Giles isn't going to play large minutes, but I think with Covington's health is going to fluctuate Melo's minutes. I think it's all about figuring out where Melo should play, what unit he should be in, and where his ball handling responsibilities lie. We'll get more to that into the pod as we break down. My pout it's very simple, and it comes down to effort. I feel like effort's been lacking in third quarters this season, and we can talk about that on the pod a lot today. We can go into the effort stuff, but I'm just tired of the lackadaisical shoot the three, shoot a lot of threes, miss the open threes. I feel like we need to produce more on offense a little bit and grind a little bit more on defense. So we'll talk about effort on the pod, but I feel like that's kind of the week. This week was effort.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because now that we're kind of getting out of our shouts and pouts and diving into OKC, that's one of the first things I'm going to bring up in that loss with OKC. To recap for everybody, this is the first week on Rip City Real Talk that we were below 500 for the week's worth of game. We went 1-2, and let's be honest, it was an amazing, thrilling, extremely lucky one that we got. So very well could be 0-3. We probably deserve to be 0-3 on this break with the way the team's been playing. But we're 1-2, and those two losses are both by 3 points. So tough, tough to lose by 3 points in each game. It really is. We talk about the effort, and I feel like, especially with OKC, as we dive into this a little bit, there just wasn't any. I mean, we've talked about Derek Jones Jr. before. We've talked about how I feel like he's not putting that passion out there when he's on the court. I don't see him being aggressive. I don't see him being vocal. And I'm starting to see that with the entire team. I really am. I think you hit the nail right on the head there with the 3-point shooting. They come out I feel like we build leads early because we're hitting shots and they're playing a little more aggressive. The defense looks good to start games. They get up by those leads. And the fact that we're blowing these leads is because they just seem to slow down. They look dead. They look dead when they're out there playing defense. They just start relying on the 3-point shot over and over and over. And it caught up to us. It caught up to us, especially in the start off that week with OKC. Just all around the defensive effort, the offensive effort, and I'll dive a little more into what I mean by that. But that's, I think you said it perfectly, and I'm a little concerned.
I think everyone is doing their job, which is fine. And Dame's a hell of a leader, right? We got to give him credit. He's a great leader. I think there was a lot of talk this week about how we're cool as a cucumber, right? The whole team is cool and relaxed and calm, and Dame and CJ never really panic. We've been there before, but I think that I want to see more desperation out of this team. Guys like Giles, Derek Jones, I think Ant, these guys should be fighting for their lives every single night. They should be playing as hard as they can. And I don't even mind if we make mistakes. I just want to see these guys making the hustle plays, making the dives, sacrificing their bodies a little bit. I think Dame sets the tone. I do think that you hit it on the head when you talk about Derek Jones Jr. and Covington. Their personalities are fitting in almost too well, it seems like to me. It seems like we don't have a lot of fire. How do you think we can regain that fire?
Well, I hope that we pull off some of the momentum that we got from the Dame shots. Let's call it that, against the Bulls. I mean, that's the first time I've really seen them get amped up over a big play. And granted, it was a buzzer beater. Of course, they got amped up over it. But throughout the season, when they make a big play like that, the other team's calling timeout, I'm not really seeing them jump and come up to each other and get pumped. They just kind of walk back. It's a timeout. They talk about it. They go back out and they start playing basketball again. And we saw the broadcast against Houston with Barkley, and he was talking about how it just looks like they're out there playing basketball, and they're not like out there to win. They're not having that sense of urgency. They're just doing their job. And especially Dame, like, I'm sorry, like I feel like when I watch him right now, like he's still doing Dame stuff. Don't get me wrong, the stats are there. Obviously, he hit the big shot, but I'm seeing just too low of energy from him as the leader on the team. And I feel like when you're the leader on the team, you're the guy that's responsible for getting everybody else jacked up. You got to be out there clapping when a guy makes a big shot. And I always see the bench, then they're yay. And maybe part of the problem is just the lack of crowd. We've talked about that a little bit throughout the year, but I feel like that's a big problem. Is we do, like you said, we have a lot of guys that feed off of that crowd. And to give a point and example of what we're talking about in general with this energy is the OKC game, especially in the second half. I mean, granted, we only lost by 3, but I feel like they started off playing pretty good. It's a young, aggressive team with a lot of guys that were drafted late. So we talked about it coming into the week that we didn't know what to expect with that. There's a lot of guys that are trying to play for their jobs and their careers because eventually, OKC makes moves or they get draft picks or whatever, and these guys start to fall out of the roster because they get better players in. And what's going to happen to those guys? They're playing like it. That's the exact kind of team that we need to go out there and put the clamps on. And I feel like we just didn't. And the points in the paint were just terrible. The penetration was terrible. They would get that ball on a rebound and they would come down and they were just into the heart of our defense doing whatever they wanted, whether it be a layup or kicking out to open guys. We talked about it all year about the penetration, that we have to be good there because of how bad we are on the perimeter. And that's why we lost that game. It just seems like you could, every time you got up and you did something good on offense, we were fine on offense, but they would come right back down and get an easy bucket almost continuously throughout that second half.
Yeah, the defense was very, very lazy, and it was not good. And with a team like that, they're a bunch of grinders, right? And we love those guys. I think we all like Lou Dort and we like SGA, and we think that they have a lot of special talent that they can utilize. But that's not a team we should lose to, and that's not a team that should make us look bad. I don't know how else to put it. It's just, we need to put teams like that in their place, and we have the vets to do that, and we have the system to do that. But I'd like to see these guys get a little more fired up. I wasn't a huge fan of the defense at all. I think Melo played 38 minutes in that game, and that was a little too much Melo. Now that's probably due to the injuries. We just didn't have the bodies, right? And that's something that a casual fan may not know. We were down to 8 guys for that game, I think.
No Covington, obviously no Nurk and CJ, but
Mhm.
it's still, I mean, to be that close. And that's what I'm talking about with the energy and the urgency. Like, you're in that game down at the end. That's a young team that you put away. Like, I understand if you get down by 15, they're out there just playing hard and they get up on you going into the fourth quarter, and you just, with the injuries, catch up to you and you lose it. Your mentality's gone. But it was a 3-point loss, man.
Yes.
It was a 3-point loss. And when you're that close throughout the game, like, you have
Yeah.
to put a team like that away. You can't be
Yeah.
in it against a team like that and not put them away. There's really no excuse. And we've talked about the effort and how it directly relates to our 3-point shooting. We shot 34%. 34%. That's bad for a team that takes 42, 43 attempts a game.
I agree.
That's not good.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that leads to those long rebounds and leads to those fast break points, the pushing of the ball down the court with these young guys. When you have a point guard like, we talk about Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and how he can push
Mhm.
the ball up the court. He's one of the league leaders in assists. You just can't give those guys those kinds of opportunities. And that's the kind of game that I wish we would have slowed down a little bit, played more aggressive, and just put the clamps on and tried to put them away with scoring of all different types, like driving in the paint, going to Cantor more,
Yeah.
drawing fouls. I just didn't see any of that.
Yeah, when you're missing Derek Jones Jr. has been hobbled off and on for over a week now, and then Covington was out. You could tell we didn't have any defensive prowess in that game whatsoever. We still kept it close, which is great, but it was a frustrating loss.
Yeah, and there's a difference to me between having guys that can play defense and defensive effort, and that's where I
Yes.
just don't think we had. I think we too
Yeah.
often just go around a screen and they're right up the gut. So
Yeah.
wasn't happy with that. It's tough to lose that kind of a game, but I will say there were still some pluses. We still saw some pluses, and mainly in our two young guards.
Yep.
Anthony came out. What did he get? I think he got 26 in that game. I want to say he scored
Yeah.
26.
Yep. I'll look it up.
It was something like that. He definitely got one of his career highs, or at least one of the season high for him.
Yeah, so
Which
he had Anthony Simons had 26.
20.
Melo had 22. That was the game where Cantor had 13 and 22 rebounds, and he looked legitimately great in that game on the glass, I should say. He didn't look great defensively.
Yeah, I mean, back to back, really 3 games in a row if you want to get into it, with Anthony playing pretty good.
Yes.
He just looks more confident, I think, is the big thing. Like, he's coming in because we've talked about this before. His role with CJ playing a lot of backup point guard when he comes back in when Dame goes into his rest, and typically CJ's in there playing with usually Trent and then Carmelo and maybe Hood and whoever else is in there, Cantor for a while before Nurk got hurt. And even before this season, I mean, we still saw a lot of the split with, CJ would go out and Dame would stay through the entire first quarter, and then Dame would rest and CJ comes back in and runs the offense. So there hasn't been a lot of opportunity for Amp to really get in there. And granted, he's 19, 20 those last 2 seasons, and now he's 21. So
yeah,
he's young, and you draft him out of high school. It's going to take time for him to get into that role. But I was worried. I was worried about what he was going to do, having to all of a sudden play 20 plus minutes a game potentially. And I got to say, he looks good. He looks like he knows when he wants to attack. He's confidently stepping back and shooting the 3.
Yeah.
There's some
His
things he
shot's
needs
nice.
to do, like playmaking, but I've liked the offense we've gotten out of him for what we've asked him to do. So that's a plus. And that came out of that OKC game. First game, he's had to play with big minutes, and I really think he grabbed the Bulls by the horn and looked good.
Yeah, I think him and Gary have both been good shooting. Their shooting looks like what we drafted them for. I can't say that either one's playmaking has been superior, and I can't say that either one have been great on defense. Gary Trent is better. Simons on defense, man, he tries, but boy, oh boy, he looks like he's in that Dame CJ vein where he's longer than they are, but he doesn't get a whole lot there. He gets blown by a lot. He makes mistakes, and that's just the youth, I think, don't you?
It is. I agree. I think he's athletic as it can be. I mean, he's got that going for him, but it's just knowing what to do. It's knowing what guys want to do, learning how to push them right or left, where your defense rotations are going to come from, to where you can, step back and let a guy go around you, knowing that you have help, and knowing when to be up in the guy's face when he wants to shoot, and learning that body language. And that really comes with experience. And, he didn't play against some of the college guys that other guys and rookies have come into the season playing as. And his
So
whole career, high schoolers. So
yeah, high school, and then he was a prep guy. So moving into Houston, so the Thunder game, they kind of snuck one on us, right? They got us. They kind of beat us up on defense, especially. They went down our throat and scored a lot. Houston was kind of a different story. They came back after some health stuff, and they got Wood back, which I wasn't really expecting him to play a full complement of minutes, and he looked pretty good.
yeah, this is the first time we talked about it in the pregame warm up stuff that we were talking about. But first game they had Cousins, they had Wall. We played against Wood in the last game he played,
Yeah.
but he was in
Yep.
for the last couple of weeks, and it was his
Right.
first game back. Eric Gordon off the bench, obviously, his
Yeah.
whole career has been a 6-man type of role. Can light it up. Terrible field goal efficiency, but volume guy that'll still get 18 points a game is what he's coming in with.
Right.
We kind of figured this would be a tough one, just from the personnel standpoint, the amount of guys that they have. Granted, their veterans have all had bad injuries. I mean, everybody knows the story with Cousins and
Yeah.
the Achilles and ACL and all the stuff that he's had going with him, and same with Wall has had all sorts of issues. But they look good. They look fine when Wall had a couple plays where he just burst straight up the court and blew past our entire defense and made things look really easy, and that's important to talk about because he really did it in the second quarter, going into the third quarter after halftime when we had a 20-point lead. 20-point lead, man.
It's been a curse.
So it feels like this whole season we're coming back from 16, 20 points down, and we're blowing 15, 20-point leads.
Houston and then Chicago is the same story. We had a 18 or 20-point lead in that one, and 18 to 20 points has been the jinx, man. They've cut it every time.
And we've talked about it, but I feel like that's a victim of us shooting too many threes. I mean, we become one of the league leaders in 3-pointers taken. It's become our offense, and I don't like it. I don't like it. And we talked about my shout being that Kanter's being more involved, and that is one of the brightest spots in this last week that I really noticed. Was it seemed like they were going low to him more and more to do one-on-one post work. They're using him to get in the mismatches.
Yeah.
And really the pick and roll game has been a lot better with him. He's starting to figure it out with Dame. I'm seeing him go up and make really good screens, and then coming off of the screens to run to the basket and get those easy putbacks.
Yep.
Has been something I want to see more of, because I'm sick and tired, man, of us shooting all these threes. It's great when it's going in. It really is. And it's fun, and you build these big leads, but then you miss and you miss and you miss. And all you do is give these teams a chance to run fast break points back on you. And even if they're not scoring on the fast break, they're setting up and getting into what they want to do before you can set your defense. And that's bad news for a team that's bad at defense.
Yeah. I don't know what to do. I mean, the lack of defense is something that we sort of expected, but the malaise on offense and to just keep hucking up threes and try to find the hot hand. And Kanter does most of his work by getting boards and doing putbacks, right? So when you look at who can actually facilitate and who can drive offense through them, Anthony Simons is very, very young still. And then Hood and Melo are they take a long time to get into their sets and their shots. And so I think I don't know. I almost wish, and we've talked about this in the past, I just wish we had a better playmaker, someone who could, off of Dame. I mean, obviously Dame's incredible, but someone who was a little stronger, who could drive, maybe like a 6-man, like a popcorn scorer.
He's got to be off the bench, because I mean, CJ is really is probably more suited to play point guard in this league than he really is shooting guard. He's a great playmaker and
I'd agree.
Sneaky with assists, but on that second unit, I mean, Ant is coming along. I see him try to make some passes where he looks like his mind is there. Like it looks like a good pass. I mean, granted, he's not executing very well, but I can see him starting to look to make better passes as he's driving in. He almost passes it sometimes, and I'd rather him just go up and try to make a layup or a dunk. I think he just feels like, oh, I drew them in, I can kick out. It's causing turnovers, but I'm starting to see that develop with him more and more slowly. But my goodness, man, Trent cannot dribble a basketball.
No.
I'm glad he's blowing everybody away with his 3-point shooting, and he's going to have to continue to shoot the 40s and make 5, 6, 7 3-pointers a game, because he's not offering us a lot of other stuff on offense. And yeah, every once in a while he'll hit a little jumper or he'll do something. He's the ugliest looking layup in the entire league, in my opinion. But we talk about going away from the 3-point ball, and I feel like in that Houston game, when we started to go away from the 3-point balls, when we really started to make our comeback. We kept it close. They got up on us after we blew the 20-point lead. And it really, again, it came down to the end. It came down to the end of the game. We lost by 3 points, and I saw two possessions, two of them where Gary Trent had the ball in his hands and tried to, I guess you could say, drive on somebody, drive on his defender, get around his defender, and create a shot. And both times were turnovers. I mean,
Yeah,
it just
doesn't
it
look
goes
good.
back to your point about being the playmaker, man.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Gary. If you check the box score, I think a lot of people like Gary because he does shoot really well and he scores a lot because he'll hit 5 threes in a game, but it's not pretty and it doesn't always help the team. And he's just a spot up guy. I don't see him ever being that Dame and CJ combo guard the way that I've seen the explosiveness out of Anthony. And we probably wouldn't have said that when they were drafted. We never would have thought Anthony would have such a high ceiling, but there was a dunk in that Houston game where he ducked between two guys and yammed it with his left hand. And
Yeah.
Anthony looks so much more explosive. And Gary is not he doesn't excel finishing at the rim. He takes it up kind of weak and tries to lay it up and misses a lot. It's just I don't love it, but he is really young too. So we kind of have to give him the benefit of the doubt, I guess.
Right, and even outside the Houston game and the Chicago game, he's one of the reasons that we won that game is because the guy has the ability to string 2, 3, 4 3-pointers in a row and just get absolutely hot. And when he
Yeah.
gets on fire like that, it helps you collapse a 7, 6 point lead into 2-1, even taking the lead sometimes, which has
Yep.
been big for us. But I don't know, man. The Houston game, I just feel like it, it's one
Uh,
of those games you wish you had a
yep.
playmaker that could go out there and do something other than shooting three. You can see that Dame is doing his best, but he looks like he's getting tired.
Yep.
We lost Jones in that game. Derek Jones got hurt. He had the
Mhm.
quad confusion. He didn't play the fourth quarter, well, most of the end of the fourth quarter. And I think that hurts because I really think in a close game like that, that's where you need your top defender with no Covington. And Trent's a good defender. Great,
Yeah.
sure, he's all right. But that's the kind of game that you really wish you had a guy like Jones out there to start clogging things up to give your
Yeah.
team a chance to come back. We lost him and we lost the game. So
Yeah, and I think so. A team like Houston is really well suited to pick and roll us to death because
oh,
John Wall is so good in the pick and roll, and he looked great in that game, right? And Christian Wood
really,
is kind of a deadly roller. When you're looking at someone like Chicago, they're going to do what we're going to do, which is spread you out and shoot. I try to outshoot you, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. And the team matchups game to game cannot be overstated. A lot of it comes back to us, our defense and effort, but sometimes the matchups we struggle with those pick and roll teams, right?
we do. And surprisingly, we've held our own against 3 point shooting teams a little more recently than we started the year doing.
Yeah,
We shouldn't have beat Chicago. We had no business beating Chicago. Dame pulled a miracle out of his hat, rabbit, whatever you want to call it, and great. And I don't think you can. I'm still coming down from the adrenaline rush, man. I still am.
oh,
So
oh,
just I was cooking dinner. All right, so I came out and I saw Levine hit that three. I'm like, oh wow, what do you know? Levine hit a deep three
yeah.
and put it with 5 seconds to go.
It was in the same spot too, wasn't it? Like almost identical.
Freaking spot, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's okay. Fool me once, fool me twice. But all right, so I walk away. I'm like, this is dumb. I'm got mad. I'm like, here they go. Perimeter defense all year. They just let Levine hit a three. I'm
yeah,
over it. So I go in there. I start stirring around my mac and cheese. Okay, making some Cajun mac.
yeah,
I come back out and watch the play. I'm like, I'll watch the inbound. Oh, hey, look at Dame hit a big three. I'm like, I don't cares. They're just gonna have to foul and they're gonna go back
yeah,
up by 4 or whatever anyway.
yeah.
So I'm like, cool. It was like a half court shot, and then you come back and then Gary Trent obviously steals the ball. Well, didn't steal the ball, but he gets the jump ball.
Jump, yeah.
Somehow beat the two-time slam dunk champion in a jump ball. I'm
That
glad
was
Levine can
weird.
hit three. It doesn't make any sense to me. It
Yeah,
was just baited, I guess. And
yeah,
then obviously the scramble to get Dame the look, um, to get Dame the look for the winning shot. But
yeah,
it just again, it's one of those games where you get up by a lot. They're shooting terrible. They started off shooting great. Then all of a sudden, the second quarter comes around and
yeah,
you look like the greatest defense on the planet because they shot, I think, in the second quarter in the 20s for their overall 3 point percentage.
yep.
And they looked great because we were going down and hitting our shots again and everything looks great in the world. And then the third quarter comes around and they just immediately just blew us out of the water again,
Yeah.
which has been a trend. You talked about it. It's been a trend in the third quarter. I don't know, man. I don't feel like we can continue to rely on Gary Trent to come out and hit 5, 6 3-pointers in a game to keep us in these games. It's
Yes,
unrealistic,
it is.
but it's where we
It
are.
it's definitely unrealistic. The Houston game was a little better because we did get Covington back, and his defense was way needed. I mean, I don't know how to explain the defense without Covington and Derek Jones. But the other thing is, so in this last game, the one that we won, I know it was Dame heroics and all that stuff, but Melo only played 17 minutes. What's up with that, man?
Well, and this is where I'm kind of glad we touched on that. It's a perfect bridge because I'm ready to move on from these games and talk about the quarter season mark, where we are with as a team with the quarter
Mhm.
season.
Yeah,
So 10-8, we're above 500. We're seventh in the West. All things considered, with the injuries and everything else going on, thrilled
yeah,
personally. I mean,
absolutely.
lucky thrilled, but thrilled. I still think we have a lot to work on chemistry wise, and the injuries don't help with that later in the year. But we're in it. We talked about what our team's going to look like coming into the year, and you just touched on it. Like Carmelo being a big part of the second unit, he's kind of been forced to start. But in the game we just won, he played 17 minutes,
Yeah.
and I don't know, man. I talked about my pout, right? And I talked about my pout being, his shots, just him taking a lot of shots. The jab, jab, jumper. I've
Yep.
seen him try to take it to the rim, and I've seen it fail over and over and over and over again. He does not have the explosiveness anymore. So all he gives you right now is intelligence and the jump shot, right? I mean, when he gets the ball in his hand, he seems to be making good passes. Like he knows what he wants to do. He's been playing a
Sure.
long time, but it's getting brutal. And I think when he's cold, I think Stotts made the right call to pull him out of that Houston game or Bulls game, Chicago
Bulls
game.
game.
I just watched him take 2 threes, and they were both super short, and they were open threes. They were good looks that he just bricked,
Yeah,
and it's concerning for us. It's concerning for
definitely.
us as a team because going forward with the injuries that we're going to have, I mean, he's a big piece of what they want to do on that second unit with the offensive game, and
Mhm.
we're going to need him to be better than that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Stotts tests the water, lets him run it out there, and I think that you take the same approach with him as you take with Hood, and that you take with probably a guy like Little as well. You just put them in the game, see how they're doing, get a feel for it. If Melo's missing a bunch of shots early, you just pull him. You give him 15 minutes. You don't give him more than 20. I don't see any reason why Melo should play more than 30 minutes unless we're down bodies. I
Or down
I just
bodies?
don't think defensively you can sustain Melo and Dame and Cantor being all three being on the floor for 30 plus minutes. Do you?
No, absolutely not. And so here's the thing: we've the first quarter of the season, we are where we are. We've seen the rotations, we've seen Hood on his minutes restriction.
Mm,
The injuries have thrown a big wrench into everything. I mean, the whole rotation is just completely off. But I will say one of the things that I want to see more of going forward is I want to see more Anthony out there instead of
yes.
Carmelo.
Yeah.
I like going small. I think you can go small. You can afford to do it. And I think even if you decide to put Cantor out there, which is probably a good call, just being a
Sure.
vet, he may not be the best defender, but he's a smart defender. He does his best.
Yeah.
I really like the Cantor, Covington,
Mhm.
Trent, Anthony, Dame look. I really do. I know you're small. I get that. But I love what I saw from the 3-point shooting perspective, and
Mhm.
Amp really getting a chance to get his own shot off because of Dane getting the attention and then the putbacks by Cantor. So I don't see a spot for Carmelo really going forward, getting more than, like you just said, that 15, 20 minutes. I don't see him closing games out. He has been,
Yeah.
and I really think they're going to start to transition more to Anthony getting those minutes until Nurk and CJ get back.
Yeah.
And I'm all right with that, man. I really am. We
Yeah.
need that playmaking, the ball movement, especially, and that's what we're getting with these young guys.
I think there's another element to it too. So you're looking at Gary Trent and you're looking at Giles and you look at Anthony. And the three of them, you kind of got to give them 25 plus minutes because you have to know with their 25 plus minutes, what can they average? What are they going to give you night in and night out? And what's their growth potential? We know what Melo's going to be, right? Everybody's seen it. He's 36 or 37 years old. We know what he's going to give you night in and night out. But if we want to be able to either sign these guys to long term deals, or B, use them as assets in trades, we have to be able to showcase their skills a little bit. So I think at this point, I agree with you 100%. You have to see Anthony and Gary Trent for 25 plus minutes. And until CJ comes back, and then once CJ and Nurk are healthy, then you go back into win now 100% playoff mode. But for right now, I'd rather just see these young guys get minutes and see what they can do. I understand the mistakes are going to happen. Derek Jones is in that camp too for me.
I agree. I do. I think that with Anthony, you get a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, options. You get more options when he has the ball in his hand than just the 3-point ball.
He's got versatility.
Versatility. There you go. Carmelo he's a jump shot guy. That's all he's going to do. He's going to get that ball in the low block. He's going to try to jump over you, see what you're going to do. And it's getting harder and harder for him because I really think teams they're on it now. And that's one thing I've noticed. The trend with him is teams aren't backing off of him, and they're making his jumpers a little bit harder. Aside from the wide open threes, which he needs to really hit again if he wants to earn the minutes of the playing time and be a focal point of our offense. But the more I see teams have to close on him, and you notice it more because I'm noticing him drive to the rim more. He's trying to get around guys because they're playing out on him a little bit further and closer in his face. So he's trying to get around them. It's not been very successful, and I think you're absolutely right. I think that's where they're starting to pull him out. Whereas with Anthony, if he can start feeling confident in making better decisions, which he's been doing with the ball in his hand, I just think you see more movement.
Sky's the limit, right? And the other thing is, so Melo knows what he wants to do, but he's not physically capable. He's like a pickup truck that's trying to be a Honda Civic, right? But when you're talking about Anthony he doesn't even know. I don't even think he knows when he has a mismatch or what he should do with the defender to put him on skates. He just does it. I don't even think he knows his full potential yet. And Gary Trent's kind of the same way. I think sometimes you want to see them go into the body of a guy and then get a layup, or you want to see them step back. And sometimes they may make the wrong move, but I would rather live and die with the youth and athleticism than live and die with Carmelo jab stepping. And I think we're just tired of that dance.
I think so too. I think that's been the story of the first quarter of the season's really been just a lot of going through Melo in that second unit, a lot of jumpers, a lot of threes, too many threes, in my opinion. I think they need to just really try to find other ways to score, whether it be attacking the rim a little bit more or just moving the ball around. I don't care if you shoot threes, I guess.
Yeah.
As long as it's coming on 2-3 passes, like make the defense have to scramble around. Stop being so predictable.
Yep.
And Anthony's really been able to do that. Maybe not the most efficient player right now with the turnovers and the decision making, but he's getting there. I mean, we're seeing the points go up. We're seeing him make better passes or trying to make better passes. And that's just a product of him being able to go out there and having that athleticism where when you run through Carmelo, which we've been doing, it just stops when it's in his hands. Unless it's fast, like unless he gets the ball and there's still movement, and then he'll try to make a pass. But I'm not seeing enough of that. It's kind of a nice transition from where we've been to where we're going, and I think Carmelo's role is unfortunately going to diminish. And it's weird to think because I think there's a lot of fans that just you hear Carmelo's name and you think it's Melo, like there's no way. And I feel like it's hard on Stotts and the team too because if I had to say, I bet you Stotts didn't even want Melo back. I really don't. I don't think he wanted him back. I think it was a Neil decision for the fan base, and he played well enough in the bubble to where they thought, hey, let's see if we can continue to do this.
I think so.
It's not really been working out. I wanted it to. Beginning of the season, you know me, man. I was all over it. I really was. But I'm starting to just see the trend and the efficiency go down, and I'm done with it. I think that's been a big issue with us, and I'm glad that the West has been struggling because as a team, we probably don't deserve to be where we are. And I think he's becoming a big part of the problem with the team, especially with what he's being asked to do and his poor execution of it.
Yeah, and right now we're 7th in the West, so we're not all bad, right? I think 10-8 is a good place to be with the injuries we've sustained. We've probably been we've lost 2 of our 5 starters, and at times 3 of our 5 starters. And then sometimes 4 or 5 when Derek Jones is banged up. So I don't know, man. We're okay. I think we're just at the point where we want to transition on. The other thing is, and you're talking about quarter of the season, Mark. So you're starting to get a feel for what we are. What about moves, man? I mean, like, what are you hearing? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you in your heart of heart? What do you want?
I don't know. It's still premature for this for me until we get closer to the deadline. But I'm really done with Hood. I would like to see him get moved. He's an expiring contract. He's a decent amount of money that I think it would benefit you to move off of.
Okay.
There's going to be a team that's willing to take a chance on him coming off their bench more so than what we can give him with the emergence of Amp and when CJ comes back with Trent and even Melo, which we're not going to trade. I just don't see it.
Yep.
And so there's no room for Hood right now. And if he can go give us something back,
sure,
I think he's going to be one of the things you see move. And I'm still not convinced that they're not going to look at least to move Trent. We've talked about it. He doesn't give us anything outside of the 3-point ball. He's a decent defender. He is. He's strong enough where he gets a guy on one-on-one. If he gets the right matchup, he's doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he got the ball on Levine, and that's great. But that hasn't been consistent all year. His shot, is going to be hit or miss. He's 44%. That's great. And it's good for our team, but at the same time, that's good for other teams. I think you can get a good size haul back for him if you decide to move off of him at the trade deadline, instead of having to deal with the restricted free agency and whether or not to match. Now, this is all skepticism. I have no idea. But to me, Hood and Trent, one of those two guys got to go at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I'm with it. I mean, they're both wings, right? And they're both in a weird contract situation. I agree with you on the Hood minutes. I don't think that there's anything left to give him. The Gary Trent thing is really weird to me. I feel like a lot of fans want us to just match whatever he's paid. And I don't think they realize that he's going to get a huge deal, probably from some random team that has some money to throw. I'm thinking he's like a 4-year, 80 million guy. I mean, like that could be realistic. That could be way over the top. I'm just trying to be realistic. And the Blazers cannot match that for a guy that they're not going to play. That's not going to even be a starter. That doesn't even make sense to me.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with the two. I think when it comes to Trent, he's going to get that $19-20 million a year contract. He just is. He's too valuable as a 3-and-D guy.
Yep.
Defense is still a little bit lacking, but he's only 21 years old, and I think that'll come. But he shoots 44% in the field. There's going to be teams that are going to throw money at that. And
yes,
I know there's a lot of fans that are going to listen to this. Like, well, that's obviously why you want to keep him. Yeah, I get that, but it's a matter of money. Because here's the deal: if you move off of Nurk, if you decide to trade Nurk, if you're like, you know what, we've seen Nurk, we know what he's giving us. The injuries are starting to mount up. He hasn't looked super solid since he's come back. If you decide there's got to be a team out there that would like a center with his contract, which is reasonable for a center, maybe you move off of him and that opens up money to bring Trent back. But then it's a matter of what are you going to do for your center position or your power forward position? What are you going to do for a big standpoint? A guy that can pick and roll and screen and make passes like Nurk and that has that kind of relationship with Dame. You're going to have to hope you can get that somewhere. We saw what it was with Whiteside. We tried to go out and get a $20 million a year center, and Whiteside was meh. He was an overall basic center who blocked shots and gets rebounds. He didn't do us any good. So I just that's the only way you open up money, in my opinion, to keep Trent, and you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it for a guy who's going to be your sixth man. Not when you don't have the money to do it. Now, I can understand if, you have the money and you get a guy like Lou Williams and you just want to throw 18, 19 at him. And we've done it before. I keep hearing the comparison with Alan Crabb. And it's like, Crabb was obviously going to be the second man or the sixth man off the bench when it comes down to having Dame and CJ. But look how that worked out. He was what he was, and he didn't end up amounting to much. And you paid too much money. And thank God Brooklyn took him from us, because that was going to put us in a bad spot. And I don't think it's any different with Trent. I just don't see him getting the minutes to really go above on our team what he is right now. I don't see him being able to evolve and blossom to his full potential playing 25 minutes a night.
Yep. I agree. And I don't know. It's going to be an interesting rest of up until the trade deadline from here on out. And I think it's going to determine. So the 7 through the 10 seed or in the West are all going to be play-in teams, right? 7 through 10.
Is it 7 through 10? I don't know if it's 7 through 10.
7,
I know
8, 9, 10, right?
I know 8 has to be a play-in if they do the same type of thing that they did in the bubble. It was 8, and then you had to be within 3 or 4 games within 8th place or something like that to have a chance. But
so we're gonna be close, right? And it's gonna be a battle every single night to stay in the West. So I think that there's two ways that we're either gonna go short term and we're gonna get somebody for this year, or we're going to look at a long-term acquisition and we're going to try to get somebody to pair with Dame and CJ for 3 years. So
I think that's more likely. I really do. I think with Trent, because if you talk about the play now and this is the big year, you want to make that big push,
Mhm.
then you keep Trent and you just see what happens in free agency. And you just run this team with Jones and Covington, and you get Nurk back and Cantor. You obviously went out and got all these guys
Yeah.
to do something because of how we did last year and coming out of the bubble. And you really think you can compete with the LAs and the Denver and the Utahs, and you think that you put the defensive pieces into place, and as you go through the year, the chemistry is going to get there, and the play is going to get there, and you're in close games, and you have a good playoff team. If you really don't think that's going to be the case, I just think that's where you look to move Trent. It's tough, and that's where it's hard for me. If you're going to move Trent, it's because you can't bring him back and you want something for the future. You want that third option, and that's, to replace Hood. That's what Hood was kind of ideally supposed to be, I think. That's why they gave him the
Yes.
$9 million for the couple of years.
I agree.
Don't think he's panned out. I don't think he looks great and back to his full confidence. And it could be a minutes thing. It could be that
Mhm.
they're restricting him and he's just not able to do it. But I don't know, man. It's the Trent thing over and over. We're going to continue to talk about it every week until the trade deadline, whether or not they decide to keep him and let him go in free agency, or maybe
Yeah.
decide to take advantage of the asset that he is and decide that Amph is going to be your 6-man off guard off the bench going forward, which I think is more realistic.
I think so too. And I think his playmaking has more potential, and I think long term Ant's defense has potential as well. I don't see it yet because he's just too young and he's too inexperienced. But we'll see. Honestly, I don't know. And I mean we're hearing like Lonzo Ball and JJ Redick, and people are hitting the market, but I just don't see us making a move yet. I think that we want to get a pulse check on this team a little bit more. Gary is interesting because he bet on himself. The thing about the Blazers is I do think we offered him a contract this summer and he turned it down to continue to bet on himself, which I'm fine with. That's cool. But he has to realize that this is a business. And so if we do decide to use that asset and trade him to a team that wants his rights, that's part of the business. So I mean, I'm good either way. And I'm not the biggest Gary fan. I feel like we already have two guards and a couple wings that we're comfortable with. I just don't see him ever being a starter. And if he's not a starter, don't pay him $80 million.
Yeah, I would love to have him back. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of the money, and people
Yeah.
don't realize what kind of money 3-point shooters like that get on
Yes.
teams that are playing good and they're a couple pieces away. You're just gonna see. I can just see him going for some team like I don't know, like a Milwaukee that can afford to pay him if they get rid
Yeah.
of some of the guys that they have. And
Speaking of Milwaukee, we actually play them tomorrow night at 5 p.m.
it's a rough stretch coming up.
Yeah. So let's go through it real quick. So we play the Bucks tomorrow on Monday. We actually have a back-to-back with the Wizards on Tuesday. The Wizards aren't very good. We should be able to beat them again.
But they did just beat Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's true, but it's kind of weird. I don't know how to explain it. And then we play the 76ers and the Knicks again. So it's going to be kind of a rough. I think this is going to be a really tough week. I would say 2-2 would be very good this week. We would be happy if we were 500. Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're not beating Milwaukee. This current team is not beating Milwaukee. It's not happening. So you do your best. You see if you're going to stay in the game. Come third, fourth quarter, if you're within 10 points, you run it out and try to get a win. Hope to get lucky and just get a couple breaks. You start getting down by 15, 20, going into the late third, rest your guys. Get ready for the back-to-back because you're going to have your hands full with Westbrook and Beal in the backcourt of Washington. And that is literally all Washington has. So we talk about the defense. Now they're probably 4-12 or something like that. I don't really know for sure what their record is. They were at 3-11, I think. So last time I looked, they just beat Brooklyn. But that's a team that Beal's going to get his 30 plus. Westbrook's going to get his triple double.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to let that happen, and you're just going to stop everybody else. It's a great game for Cantor to get some points. It's a good game for really Covington, and hopefully Jones can play. I don't know how severe his injury is. Probably going to keep him out for a couple games, but that's the kind of game that Covington can lock his guy down and really just keep him out of the paint. And they're not the best 3-point shooting team. I think you can sneak that one in. I do. I think you can sneak that one in.
Yeah, I'd be confident with that.
Philly is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Again, they're the type of team that you're not overly worried about the 3-point shot. Embiid can stretch out and hit it every once in a while. Simmons, I think, has made one career 3-pointer, so I'm not too worried about him. And they have some other guys, I mean, Tobias Harris can get his shot, and there's some guys that they have that can do it, but not overly worrisome. Going to be a tough game just because I think they can score down low on us,
Sure.
and their team moves the ball around really well.
Yeah, we struggle a little bit with that.
And then the Knicks we've already beat, so
Yep.
I don't know. I would think 2-2 is reasonable. I think you can
Okay.
get Washington. I think the Knicks are the other one you have a chance at getting, but it wouldn't surprise me if them or Washington comes out offensively against our defense and ends up beating us. So it's really going to be hard to say. I think 2-2 is reasonable. I'll give you that.
Come over next Sunday. Check in on the YouTube channel, and you'll find out how we did.
Yes.
Follow us on Twitter to find out. Right.
That's where we're at, man.
Yeah.
We appreciate all the support from everybody. This is again, we're happy where the team is at. We're at the quarter mark. We're 10-8 with all the injuries and the chemistry issues that we were going to face coming into the year, and the injuries that we've had the last few weeks to really stay afloat, to stay in 7th. The West is not good right now outside of LA and Utah. I mean, everybody's kind of just congested. Nobody's really pulling away from the pack.
Yeah.
Those 3 teams are playing great, but everybody below them, I mean, it's feasible to keep above water right now until you get past these injuries, and we're going to have to keep hoping that we can pull 1 or 2 wins a week.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think people should be proud of the team. I think there's a lot of problems with the defense, but we knew that coming in. Our goal is to outscore people, and I think we'll be able to continue to do that. I love that we've made this transition to the younger guards. It's something to keep an eye on for people. And I think, hats off to the team so far.
Yep. I think the thing to watch this week will be Kanter's battles down low. I think when you're going to watch him against Giannis. You're going to see him, obviously, Washington doesn't have centers, but watch him against Embiid and see how he does. And then also watch him against, the Knicks have really fun young bigs. So kind of keep your eye on the paint this week, and let's see what happens.
For sure. And we'll continue to do the pregame stuff for you guys. So, if you casual fans who just don't know a lot about the NBA, we'll keep you guys updated, try to get any kind of storylines we know of.
We got
keep
you.
That going, and, we're just excited to keep this up. It's a quarter season in for us. It's our 8th episode. We're doing our best to continue to grind. Craig got his own special haircut for this edition, and homemade.
I did it myself, actually. And let me say, it's the worst haircut that's ever happened in my life.
You gotta get the comb trimmer thing that I've seen on the TV where you can do your own haircut, they say.
I might quit my day job to become a podcaster, but I will not quit it to become a barber because this is atrociously bad.
I would almost let you trim my beard. Almost.
I did cut my goatee. Super nice, though.
Yeah, look at that little patch of fur, like a little just group of palm trees in the desert. What is
Johnny
that? Like, look up. There's what is that little pouch? Yeah, what is that? It's like its own little island of hair there. I like it, man.
Yeah, this is the big island right here, and then this is Oahu. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Man.
Well, hey, man. Yep. Let's go. Let's have a big week, Blazers. Effort time.
Yep. Yeah, effort time.
Effort time. Let's try. All right, everybody. We're out. Peace.
Peace.